Mr. Simmons, can you do the rebuttal?
You heard what Nicholas Rossi did to her. You saw how, you heard from her how she felt. You saw how she felt as she told you about that. You heard that once she told him that the relationship was over, then he raped her. There's been discussion about us taking away the agency by, I guess, saying that he was controlling of her. She had agency. She chose to date him. She chose to get engaged to him very quickly. Now, he was being manipulative, he was being controlling, that was his idea. But she could choose. The one thing she did not get to choose is when she did exercise her agency, when she said, this relationship is over, I am done. And he said, no, 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 pounding on the car, he will not leave. She has to apparently run him over to get away. I guess we're supposed to hit people with cars now, like if they won't walk away. That doesn't make any sense. We don't, since she wasn't prepared to, like, I guess, murder a man that day, or like at least severely injure a man that day, after having been in her own accident and knowing what that's like. When she wasn't prepared to do that, she exercised her agency to figure that maybe giving him a ride home would be okay. That wasn't good enough for him. He continued to reject her agency. He wouldn't get out of the car. He wouldn't leave. He berated her. She wasn't in the conversation. I'm even going to push back a little bit on how Mr. Heiner characterized it during the first part of our closing, that it was an argument. It sounds very one-sided. She's staring at a tree. She remembers that tree because she was just staring at a tree. He wouldn't stop. He's not honoring her agency. Finally, she gives up. Okay, we'll go in. He calms down. She's trusting. That's how she got here this fast, right? That's how she ended up engaged and, like, in a car again with this man so fast. That's how she ended up back here. I caution you about judging, requiring other people to act exactly how you would act in a particular situation. I also ask you to consider if she acted differently if she acted differently than I would have acted. Sometimes I've done things that I wouldn't expect. I don't think she feels good about her choices that day. She wasn't here to say, like, no, it was a really good idea to let him into my car. I'm really pleased with that decision. It was a bad decision. But when they got to her house, his house, when she finally got to his house, he wouldn't get out. The only way he's going to get out is if she goes in, fine, he's calm, he's charming again, fine, she'll go inside. She reiterates again, she's exercising her agency. She's saying, I'm done with this relationship. Like, I'm here to talk to you, but we're still done. Then, he absolutely takes away her agency. He shuts the door, suddenly pushes her down onto the bed. He holds her down, restrains both of her arms, and this is not romantic, this is not her mistaking things. There's no kissing, there's no, hey, take off your clothes, or he pulls down exactly the amount of pants that he needs to pull down to rape her. He rapes her, and I guess, and again, it sounds like there's a belief that once someone is raped, she has to, like, break through a window, go screaming, maybe hit him with her car now after it happened, I'm not sure. Never talked to him. She never saw him again. She's scared of him. Why did she never see him again? She's scared of him. She told you that. She never saw him again because she's scared with him. She continued to, she changed her number because she didn't want him to call her again. Now, when he continued to chip away at that, she did choose to respond. Again, we act differently when someone won't stop. We try different things to get them to stop, but when someone won't stop, sometimes we give them an inch, hoping that this will work out. Maybe if I respond, I can say, like, hey, no, really, we're done. Maybe they'll stop. He won't stop. Finally, she changes her number a second time. The emails keep coming. And the email, who knows how long the emails keep going, but finally what it ends is she just stops. She finally has a number he doesn't know, and she just tells Gmail to transfer all of his emails to her inbox. He never stops. He never honors her agency. Finally, she just kind of stops hearing from him and it winds down. Now, we're not playing a game. Mousetrap, I played Mousetrap. I also had a game of Mousetrap with missing pieces. Also never understood it. I agree, it's complicated. We're not playing Mousetrap. Mousetrap is a board game that is designed to be as complicated as possible. It's a Rube Goldberg sort game, if you remember Rube Goldberg devices, where you were designed to catch the mouse in the most complicated way possible. We're here about truth. What is true? How do you know what's true? We listen to people. We pay attention to our common sense. We pay attention to how they tell us things. We pay attention to what they tell us, and we decide. We don't have to go looking for little pieces when there have been pieces provided. Now that bridge that you saw in the first closing, some might describe that bridge as overbuilt, right? Like, if you saw that bridge in real life, you might wonder why did the government choose the highest bidder to build that bridge? Why is it a bridge that goes from one side to the other, and it's a suspension bridge, and it's got all those pillars? Like, that's a bit much for a bridge. But that's here because we're here about beyond a reasonable doubt. And when it's beyond a reasonable doubt, we provide you with all of those pieces. Would you walk across the bridge? Have you ever walked across a bridge that was just just built from one side to the other, just fully on both sides? Sure, like maybe hiking or something. Would you walk across a suspension bridge? Okay. What about a suspension bridge with a lot of pillars? There is a lot there. You don't need all of that, but that is everything that you have to decide this case. If we have a puzzle, first off, I'm going to submit to you that this is a 4-piece puzzle. There are 4 elements that the state has to prove. Check your elements. The elements of the crime are Nicholas Rossi had sexual intercourse without her consent, and he was at least reckless about whether she consented. He was at least not really he was at the very least took a serious risk, and you can read your definition of reckless. He at very least took an unreasonable risk that right after she broke up with him, she maybe didn't want to have sex without him at least talking to her about it first. Those are your elements. Blair Street is not one of your elements. Blair Street's not in there. The state doesn't have to prove Blair Street beyond a reasonable doubt. Blair Street is provided to give you the context, to help you know, to give you the details, to connect him there. Now, and to be clear, the police can't put Mr. Rossi at Blair Street until January 21st of 2009, because that's when he had some sort of verbal dispute with his roommate, but puts him on Blair Street in 2009. Now, so the question about Blair Street, is this maybe the apartment in Provo? No, it's not the apartment in Provo. It's the house where his room is just inside when you go in the front door, as confirmed in the photos. And she says it's a 5 to 10 minute drive from, it's a 5 to 10 minute drive. Maybe she might have even said 10 to 20, but you're not getting to Orem in 10, 15 minutes from the Gateway Mall. Gateway Mall to, she said South Salt Lake. Regardless, we're not proving Blair Street beyond a reasonable doubt, even though does put him in that house. She does recognize that house. She didn't say it's a brick house. She said, I think bricks. I don't know. Bricks inside or outside? And there are rocks outside, right? She wasn't focused on that. When she was with him, she was focused on hanging out with him, being in his room a couple of times. When he raped her, she was focused on the tree where she was staring where he would not get out of her car, while he did not respect her agency. She then was not on her way out of the house after he raped her and pulls her pants up at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night heading home. She's not saying oh, hey, I should probably check out this house and mentally sketch what it looks like. That's not what people do. That's not how memory works. Now the other question's about what people do. Ken Roach talked to you about that. What do people do? People react differently. Different people react differently. This is not a TV show where everybody has to be from central casting every single time. This is not a TV show where people are going to deliver the same line you've heard in every other episode. This is real life, where different people react differently, where different families react differently. Not every family handles things like like Mike and Carol Brady. Different families handle things different ways. And you heard Tammy's testimony. She did care. She tried to go talk about it, but she had also just heard what her husband said, or at least what perceived him to have said, whether he intended it that way or not, whether he heard everything or not. They were reacting to that. She tried. It sounded like she kind of understood, like shut down at that point. Now, I guess I'll just mention it just briefly. I know you don't want me to spend a lot of time on the eviction, but just briefly. The eviction, a couple of things to notice about the eviction, and notice about that, I think it's Defense Exhibit 1. So you notice that by the end of that action, people owed, so the question of like, how did he have money to pay for rent on Blair Street if he then subsequently got evicted? Well, you notice on that document that there's $5,000 owing in that action. Nobody's paying rent. And they've got people listed on there who don't even live there. 3 people live there. I don't remember the third guy's name, but Eric and Nick and the other guy, I think there's like 4, 5, 6 people listed there. So I don't know if it's a sublet. I don't know if these are people that moved in after Nick left. Regardless, they owed $4,000. So Nick's not paying rent at the Pinnacle Apartments. How did he pay for Blair Street if he doesn't have a job, never has money? He made her go to the ATM and take out $1,000. And right after that, he moved into a new place. That was part of the money manipulation that we're talking about, part of him taking her money. She told you, he took her to an ATM, he needed $1,000. She doesn't know, she's not able to tell you. But as far as like, how could he possibly? Well, $1,000 will pay a deposit, maybe a first month's rent. Also, this is 2008, I'm not saying it will today, but used to be able to get an apartment for $1,000. Or a room in a guy's house. So also just the idea that all of the evidence was provided by your Detective Coates' testimony. We didn't go into a lot of detail, but he found Nicholas Rossi in another country under a different name. And sure, provided some things, and that's how memory works. Like we might say like, oh, winter time, I remember looking at a tree, I remember it was very cold in the car, maybe January. And we look at our phone records and we say, okay, well no, I changed my number after the rape, and so it must have been before this date, and well, I certainly didn't sue him while we were still engaged. It must have been December. Who puts him at Blair Street? She puts him at Blair Street. So, sometimes people do lie. I agree with that. That's true. Sometimes people do lie. But you actually have an instruction that talks to you about things to consider. And one of the things that it tells you to consider is people have a motive to lie. So you do ask yourself, your instructions tell you one of the things to consider in deciding who to believe is, does the person have a motive to lie? Does the person have a reason 15 years later to go through this process, to relive this, to go through the emotions of this experience again? If it was like breakup sex, there's nothing to suggest it's breakup sex. Her testimony is evidence. Evidence is testimony, evidence is documents. Her testimony is evidence. And she testified about what happened. Now, people do sometimes lie. And when Mr. Rossi was extradited, appeared in Utah for this case, he knows he's there on charges. That's what happens when you come to court find out what your charges are about when you get extradited, when you come to court for the first time. Sometimes people do lie. He lied. And this isn't just his new name. Sometimes people do change their names. That's valid. That's why we refer to him as Mr. Oliveira. People can change their names. He was going by the name of Arthur Knight, and when the judge asked him, he pretended not to know who Nicholas Rossi was. I'm not, and when Detective Coates talked to him, like, is it Rosie or Rossi? He pretended not to know. He knew. He knew because that was him. He pretended not to know because he was facing these charges, and he told first the judge, female judge whose name starts with an A, that Ms. Vasquez couldn't remember her last name, and then Judge Lawrence, and he was going by Nicholas Rossi. And with that first judge, he said, I am Arthur Knight, and his date of birth. He gave a different date of birth. You can change your name, sure. You can't change your date of birth. That is not how that worked. You don't change your date of birth. You don't forget your date of birth. You don't put it in a different order. You don't say that. So I check your memories. This is just off the top of my head. Nicholas Rossi date of birth, Detective Coates testified, is July 11th of 1987, and that is the date of birth that the judge gives. He says the 11th of 22nd of 86. Wrong month, wrong day, wrong year. You don't change your date of birth. You do get to consider that. You do get to consider, why is he lying to the judge about who he is? Why is he pretending to be Arthur Knight? Sometimes people do lie. And you get to consider their motivation for telling that lie. So one of the things, and you do have to consider who to believe. One of the things that your instruction tells you, how believable was the witness's testimony in light of human experience? And Mr. Heiner touched on this, but if I was going to make this up, she would have had her details locked in, and she would have made it up better. Why not say he was also physically abusive during their relationship? Because he wasn't. He just wasn't. Why not say she fought back during the rape? Why not make it sound like a TV show? Why not make it sound like something that would convince a police detective? Because it didn't happen that way. She didn't fight back. She broke up. She told him she broke up, and he held her down and raped her. Why not say that he injured her, and over the ensuing years her injury healed? Because that didn't happen. She just told you what happened. Why not say she was forced into the house? Why not say he forced his way into the car that she might not even have anymore? Why not? Because it didn't happen. She told you what happened. And then just briefly, I want to mention why the purpose for which you're considering testimony. Here's what here's what it is. If it's even slightly more likely, so defense talked about the different burdens of proof. The different burdens of proof, so you need to apply a preponderance of the evidence of a more likely than not standard for Christine's testimony. So here's what it is. If it's even slightly more likely that Rossi held Christine down and raped her while she cried, and then she reported it the next day, if that is slightly more likely, then his claim that he was scared of sex and that she raped him 6 to 8 times, but he didn't mention the 6 to 8 rapes during a long interview with a detective about sexual assault in that relationship, if even slightly more likely, which it is, then you consider the similarities between what he did to and what he did in determining whether he made it up without knowing any details about consider the similarities. And I won't rehash those. Mr. Heiner went over those. I suppose I will push back on the defense argument that those are all pretty normal things. They're not. There's a lot of things there that are just not a part of every sexual encounter. There are very specific things there. Sure, some things are going to be more common, but at the same time, Dr. Roach said, people describe different things. People react different ways. Your role as jurors is to focus on the elements. Has the state proven it beyond a reasonable doubt? Now, Ms. Dugan took it back immediately, but I just want to reiterate again. Beyond a reasonable doubt is not 100%. Your jury instruction specifically says that we are not required to determine with absolute certainty. 100% would be absolute certainty. You are not required to determine this with absolute certainty. Your instruction tells you so. Please read the beyond a reasonable doubt instruction. It tells you what it is. And it is, are you firmly convinced? Are you firmly convinced, based on testimony, based on the evidence, based on the similarities that you're considering, and based on your common sense, are you firmly convinced that this was raped? Now, look at the elements, look at the consent instruction. There is nothing about anything that happened that suggests any consent here. By all views, this is consensual. And so what you're looking at is, were there things that supported, and there were. And you've heard about those, and I won't reiterate them again, but please consider all of that, and consider the fact that Nicholas Oliverdian pretended to be Arthur Knight with a British accent and a fake date of birth. Consider all of that, and we ask you to find the defendant guilty of rape. Thank you.